So Rugg says, Bradley and team would love your advice on the best process to create content at scale with outsourcers. We probably need to create 300 or 400 pieces of content over the next year or so. Some of these would be rephrased for local cities. How would you improve this? And I'll go ahead and read through these because this is actually a really good, proposed process here. And then I'll expand on, give you a couple of additional maybe pointers or something. But I think we've got a fairly good idea here, in my opinion, of a process. So number one is to work from a list of clustered keywords for each piece of content and its variations. These clusters could come from a tool like SurferSEO, which, by the way, the SurferSEO content planner, it's good for developing content clusters. I found that, in fact, again, I thought I was going to get rid of SurferSEO because I like outranking.io, but I really like the content planner inside of SurferSEO. So I'm literally keeping that tool right now, mainly for that reason. I like how it helps me to develop content clusters very quickly. So, and then I usually go into outranking to start drafting the articles, build the outline and everything else, and then flesh the outline out and everything. So anyway, I think that's a great strategy. Number one, Surfer's a great tool for that. Number two is use tools like Jarvis.AI combined with SurferSEO to help write 1,000 to 1,200 word blog posts with those keywords. Yeah, you certainly can. Jarvis is good for fleshing content out very quickly. If you only want one tool, like I said, I kind of like outranking.io because it has an AI writing assistant built into it that will actually reference the SERP results to spit out content that is based upon the topical relevance of the SERP results, where in Jarvis, you can't do that. So, but Jarvis is great for like filler content. And I don't mean that to sound like it's not a good tool, because you can optimize the content that it spits out. But there are times where I'm using Outranking to flesh out an outline with the AI writing assistant built into it, but it doesn't really give me the as much like content for that, for the subheading or whatever that I'm trying to fill out. So sometimes I'll still end up in Jarvis and fleshing it out a little bit further. So it's another tool that I'm continuing to keep. Plus Jarvis has some great templates that are just hard to beat. So again, that's another really good strategy, using Jarvis with the SEOsurfer integration to produce articles. Number three, rephrase posts with the most competitive keyword clusters in the unique articles for different local areas using a tool like Quilbot or Rephrase, but mix in different unused keywords from the cluster. Only a fraction of the keywords in the clusters are recommended per post by Surfer's tool. Again, both great tools. I have a subscription to Rephrase plus the AI or the SEO add-on, which is really cool. Rephrase has got a great outline builder as well. Quilbot is great for rephrasing stuff. If you have the Quilbot Premium, you can rephrase up to 10,000 characters at a time. And there's the different settings now: formal, creative, shorten, expand, like all those different types of things in Quilbot Premium that really help. There's one tool here that hasn't been mentioned that I tagged you or mentioned you, Ruggs, below in a comment that I just recently started using that is really good too, especially in a situation like yours where you need to create hundreds of articles. Page Rewriter, Mike Martin's Page Rewriter. Again, the link's on the page below, guys. But that's also really good too, because what that does is it very much like Quilbot, it will rephrase everything. But what I like about it is you can put a keyword in and set a location, and it will go scrape the top 20 results, organic ranking results for that keyword in that location. And it breaks everything up in the sidebar into SEO titles or meta titles, heading tags, H1 headings, H2 headings, the paragraphs, all of that stuff. So you can literally go in there and just click the button and it will copy, and it breaks it up, not like the content body of one page is all together. No, it extracts individual paragraphs out. So what I like to do, and this is a strategy that we've been using more recently for like tier 1 assets or for link building content, is we'll go scrape content that is topically relevant, right? It's already ranking and optimized content that's ranking for the same type of search query that I'm going to be producing content for, right? So what I'll do is I'll go like search tree removal in a different city than where the content's going to be published for. And then I'll just mix and match headings. So different, H1s or H2s and H3s, really, different paragraphs that fit together, but are from different sources of the top 20 ranking results. And then what in that same kind of page rewriter editor, then once you've kind of created the original article from other people's content, then you click the rephrase button and it just rewrites everything. And it becomes unique. And then the last step is just to go in and optimize for your specific location, right? So to swap out location mentions and things for the location. That's something that we've been doing, like my team's been doing recently, and it works really good, especially for producing content for like tier 1 stuff and for link building, because it's much quicker than generating new content using an AI writing assistant. Again, all of the strategies that you mentioned are great, and they will absolutely work. I think it's a really good proposed process that you have here. I would just suggest you also take a look at Page Rewriter, because if you're doing a whole lot of content, especially around the same sort of topics, my blogger sent me an email about this specifically, no shit, because she's been working exclusively on tree service content for like the last 4 or 5 months. And she said it gets exhausting, right? Writing about the same topic over and over. And when she's not really writing as much anymore because of the AI writing assistants. And so I was like, okay, well, here's Quilbot and then here's Page Rewriter. These can help you to not have to produce as much content, because you can go find other content and rephrase it, rework it, kind of massage it to use for our own projects. So again, last part of this was number 4 is he says video the whole process and have it outsourced. Outsource Kingpin methodology. And that, in my opinion, is the best. First of all, you have to develop the process through the first 3 steps that you mentioned. But once you do have a process that is working, then absolutely record it, create a process doc out of it, like what I do, and then outsource that shit. Because it's the exact same thing I did with my blogger with all these AI tools. Was I spent about 3 months of my own time testing and figuring out how to use them. And then I developed a process, and then I gave her the process, and she has taken over content for me almost 100%. I still play with the tools because I'm still sometimes need stuff and I'm testing stuff still. But she's taken over all of my content, like production, essentially, so that I don't have to do that. I can focus on higher level stuff. That's where you should be as well, Ruggs. But at first, you have to develop the process for your team. Do so, and I think your suggestions here or proposed suggestions are good. A good start. What do you say, Marco?
I think that's a great start, except with some tweaks. Now, those 300 to 400 pieces of content. Are you talking about these are all for the same website or for the same money site? And what you're going to do is you're going to produce local city variations of that content. Because then looking at this, you're going to have some kind of service or product plus city. When you're thinking about that, and I'll just give you the example, widgets. If you're going to be dedicated to selling or offering yellow widgets, well, you have to understand that the top entity or the top level category on this is actually widgets, not yellow widgets. Widgets would be yellow widgets would be a subcategory of widgets, and you haven't yet gotten to the city, because you're going to also have related entities to this yellow widget, which is red, green, brown, purple, whatever color widgets. You're also going to have shape. You're also going to have what they cost. You're going to have a lot of different variations to this before you even get to the city. So the way to start thinking about this is the way that Google is categorizing the entity, with the top level entity, then the sub entity, then the supporting entities, and the related entities. And related entities also mean not just the yellow widgets that bring you money, but everything related to this widget entity. So that as you expand the entity, you are going to start, let's call it ranking, but you're going to start getting more action, because you're pushing for actually widget. You're trying to bubble up the entity widget, which would be like the brass, right? That brass ring that you're reaching for, but you're doing that by categorizing your content when you first start. You then go with the city element, which is not now this is location based. Before you even think about rewriting, you have all of these different pieces of content that you're adding to this entity to explain to Google whatever it is that you're doing, which should also be accompanied by schema. Of course, each one of these pages that you're setting up for this should be and have to be, even the supporting posts have to be accompanied by schema. Now, clustering is a fantastic, it's what we're talking about, clustering into yellow widgets and red widgets and green widgets, and the size of the widgets and the color, right? Not the color, but the size, the shape, the cost, whatever you can get. Then you get to the city. Now, when you have these together and you're going to start rewriting them, you can't forget a tool or software like Inlinks. Inlinks, Dixon Jones's software is fantastic for helping you expand that entity, for giving you even FAQ schema and additional entities and the relationship to Wikipedia, where you can pull in where the AI, where Google's AI was actually trained, the NLP was actually trained, which is BERT. It helps you further define the information. All of the other software, I mean, use these in conjunction. Use Jarvis and use Surfer and use Phrase to help you further work out. But this is at the higher level when you're working on fleshing out that entity. When you're rewriting, then I mean, Bradley uses Mike Martin's software. I use Quilbot. I use Quilbot because once I have my content entity tuned, I don't want to touch my entities. I want them frozen. And Quilbot allows me to do this. And I can actually add entities to it. But the VAs are trained so that they can add or subtract entities as needed. But we know the ones that just cannot change, that need to be frozen. And Quilbot does a fantastic job of freezing these entities so that we keep adding that relevance for Google. So yeah, this is a fantastic way. And then, as you said, yes, the whole process, you need to create the process so that you can turn it over to somebody else to do for you, which is, I mean, it's exactly what we did. We took Jordan's presentation, POFU 2020, and we turned it into a process. We turned it over to a VA. She trained a couple other people. And then here we are today. She's writing fantastic content, which is entity tuned and using Quilbot to rewrite as many times as we need it and rephrase, while still supporting and keeping an eye on that main entity, because we can never take our eye off the prize and what it is that we need to do, which is push for that top level category, which is widgets. We know we're not likely to rank for that, but everything else under that is at play. And eventually, if you add enough activity, relevance, trust, and authority, you will rank for widgets over time, of course, over time.
Yeah, to clarify, just to, I am definitely I'm using Quilbot Premium a lot. I just also have recently started using Page Rewriter also, and I just explained where there's some differences. I do absolutely like Quilbot a lot. I've been using Quilbot Premium for months, and it's been really, really good. So that is a great tool. There's no question. The only thing I was saying was that Page Rewriter, especially if you're doing a lot of content for tier one entity assets and link building content, I think, or like Magic Page, like mass page stuff, but Magic Page plugin builds, then Page Rewriter can help you to very quickly generate content that doesn't necessarily, it's not as important, in my opinion, at least through some of the testing that I've done. Look, I've said this before, if you treat your tier one content like it's money site content, you get way better results. There's no question about that. But what I'm saying is for like link building articles and stuff, it's okay to kind of create content out of other people's content very quickly and then just rephrase it. And what's interesting is put that stuff through Copyscape and you'll see like, it's interesting. I've done this with Quilbot and sometimes it'll come back with, like 30-35% common type. Like, in other words, it's showing that some of the phrases that have been rephrased and things have been published, but it's acceptable. But what I like about the Page Rewriter, especially for like link building articles and such, is that it will, or Magic Page stuff, is that I've done dozens of tests now. Well, probably about 20 times now that I've done it in where I've created an article that was other people's content, and then rephrased it inside of Page Rewriter. And then I've taken it over to Copyscape Premium and pasted it in there to see. And it's come back unique every time, which is really interesting. So I agree with Marco, especially for money site content, that Quilbot is better because you can freeze entities or freeze words that are entities, so that they don't get rephrased, or I don't want to use the word spin, right? But rephrased with or swapped out with other synonyms. And I think that's important. I think for some, again, depending on where the content is going to be used, it might be a bit more efficient to use Page Rewriter in some cases. So that's all I'm saying. Again, I've got subscriptions to all of these tools, right?
Yep.
Because they're all great. They're all great tools and they all have their place. And you combine all these tools together and you can produce just amazing content. And we talked about this during PoFu Live, but I mean, I think 70% of the ranking, and maybe it's always been this way, but I think 70% of the ranking battle right now is on Page. If you get that shit right, it just makes everything so much easier. So
dial it in, both code and content.
Totally
and
agree.
You win.
Totally agree.